I am finally, I am back, ladies and gentlemen. You know what? Before I jump into this, I want to say shout out to all y'all because I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting. I guess maybe I thought he'd come back, there'd be a little bit of drop off. Some people say, he's been gone for 2 weeks, maybe he quit. But everybody's been sticking tough, man. That's humbling. It really is. That's really cool. So shout out to y'all for that. Now, brief explanation before we jump into this, because there's a lot to talk about. But so one of my nearest and dearest friends, shout out to the Iron Brother, came down for 2 weeks, and it was just good, man. Kicking back, relaxing, and chilling with the home slice. And then after that, we had Elsa, so the living arrangements here were a little warped for a couple of days. The lady's mom came and stayed with us for a bit, and this is where I record, which is also the guest room when people come to visit. So, I tried to give it a go in one of the other rooms in the office, but it was all echoey and crap, and I just couldn't do it. I don't know. I think I'm weird that way, though. When my routine gets messed up, I find any reason to not, if I'm being honest, and I'm gonna be honest, if it's not the way I want it, like if it's not in the room, in the chair, facing the right direction, I'll find a reason why I can't do it any other way. So, but the echo did bother me. It's not something I probably couldn't have figured out if I put any time into it. But next little bit of news is I started a new job this week. So then there's that. So, and then of course I said I'm going to come back yesterday, but like a dumbass, I left my laptop at work. So I had to go back and get it today. And here we are. But we should be back to normal now. Not should be, we are. We're back to normal now. So, with all that aside, welcome back. It is a joy to be coming to you again tonight. And, well, you see the topic. There's been a lot of crazy shit going on since I've been gone. Yeah. No, but tonight we're going to talk about what's going on with Cuba, Chancellor Biden's response, and why, in my opinion, his response is what it is. So, for those of you who do not know, it started with protests on Sunday in Cuba, which have, now turned violent. And the people were protesting, in short, the government, the communist government of Cuba. But specifically their response to COVID, the fact that everybody's broke, the fact that nobody can get access to food, the things that come with a communist government, general failure across the board. So I believe it was Tuesday night. What's today? Wednesday. So yeah, it was Monday night. It was Monday night because that's when I recorded that episode. But the echo was there and I couldn't figure it out, so I trashed it. But anyway, Monday night, the president of Cuba actually called upon the communist loyalists of Cuba to basically start attacking the protesters. Well, this was denounced worldwide, and you had Democrats doing what Democrats do, which is be duplicitous and act like, this is so bad, even though, wait a minute, there's a flavor of communism that's active here now, thanks to them. Right? Because for those of you who don't know, Nevada has a full-on socialist, someone in the governing body. I think it's a governor, or maybe it's I'll have to look it up, but I'll put the article down in the description for you. Of course, everything I reference will be down there for you. But their state government is in effect being run by a socialist now. So there you go. And, for as much as they like to try to make the distinction between, oh no, it's not communism, it's socialism. Okay, well, that's like, Coke and Pepsi. Basically the same fucking thing. If you ask for a Coke and they say, well, we only serve Pepsi products here, so is a Pepsi okay? You'll be like, yeah, that's fine, whatever. There are some nuanced differences, don't get me wrong. But in terms of the application, in terms of how it plays out the same everywhere. Socialism has failed everywhere it's been implemented. I know Democrats like to tout places like Denmark and Sweden, but they're not socialist. As a matter of fact, the president of one of those countries during the COVID mania last year came out and said, we're not a social. Stop calling us socialist. We're not socialist. We have a couple of things. We have a couple of socialist policies, but we're not socialist. But you know who is socialist? That would be Venezuela. And that's why we have a bunch of them here. A bunch of them, especially in Florida. And speaking of Florida, well, South Florida is on fire now because, well, maybe you haven't heard, but there's a pretty heavy Cuban population down there. So they've been protesting and blocking highways because that's the thing now. Man, I miss that orange man so badly. Good God. So, as the mayor of Miami is now calling for the military to intervene because they've lost all control down there because people are mad that their relatives are now being shot for protesting against a fucked up form of government, what do we get? Well, Joe Biden has, and his administration, right, have made their stance clear. So Monday, they had some Asian lady tweet some kind of political response about we support peaceful protest and their right to be heard. But then they started getting killed for speaking their minds. And see, as a quick sidebar, that's my problem with all the wokies. That's my problem with feminists. That's my problem with these gay activists. That's my problem with these Black Lives Matter activists, or like these pro-blacks. They will put on their little theater. They'll put on their little show right here where it's safe. But see, if you're a real feminist and you really believed in women's rights, well, your biggest fight is in the Middle East. Why aren't you there? You could say the same thing for gays. They throw you off of a top of a roof. They stone you. They do biblical shit to you over there. Why aren't you over there? Same thing for these pro-blacks. Why haven't you stormed a neo-Nazi compound? Why haven't you stormed, a Klan rally? But no, you'll stay where you're safe and where you can put on your show and where everybody can think that you really give a shit about what you're talking about. But at the end of the day, you just go home, watch TV. And that was that thing you did that one time. But anyhow, so after the president of Cuba, the president, right? It's communist. You can call them whatever they want. I mean, they call the person in the White House the president. And, well, there's some similarities between us and them. And I'll get to that in a second, too. But so he openly calls for the loyalists to shut these people down. Now, does that sound familiar, by the way? You're going to notice this, hopefully, throughout this, if I don't mess it up. Shut them down, huh? Let me rephrase that. You need to confront them. You need to get in their face and tell them that they are not welcome. Imagine just a wrinkly, pruny, brown face saying that with a wig and a pearl necklace. Yeah, I'm talking about Maxine Waters. So anyhow, you have these communists now basically waging war against these people. And they've been arrested by cops and disappeared. But now they're actually being shot. So the people are saying, okay, well, screw this. We're leaving. Let's go. Grab the first inflatable raft and we will swim We will float. They're trying to float their asses over here. And Joe Biden's administration said, you're not welcome here. The compassionate, caring Democrats, the minority's best friend, said, if you come here, you're not getting refugee status. Because it's not an election year. No, but because, well, no, that is the truth. But also because, why? Well, in my opinion, who is Biden beholden to? I mean, he's beholden to a lot of people. That image of Emmanuel Macron sticking his finger in his face comes to mind. But who's the big boss right now? Me Chinese, me play joke. Me pee in your coke. Xing Xing Ping. The sound effects man. So what would Joe Biden look like taking in who are being dubbed as political agitators? Because technically they are. What would he look like taking those refugees into China? Restating that, what would Joe Biden look like taking in Cuban refugees from China's perspective? So that's, in my opinion, the main reason why these people are not going to get refugee status, even though of all of the fucking people who have been given refugee status over the last 10 years, these people are what it was intended for. These people trying to flee Cuba are what that status was intended for. But as with a lot of things, a lot of institutions, a lot of programs, a lot of policies set in place for certain specific emergency situations, Democrats have molested it for their own political gain and bastardized it. So Joe Biden is now refusing to take these people in as refugees, basically saying, you're on your own. Well, that's not being received too well. And that's why you have the demonstrations down in Miami. And then there was something with Haiti, too. I really didn't look too much into it. But Haiti had is having some kind of an upheaval as well. Not sure if it's linked to the same thing. I'll probably have to do some more digging on that. But, and it's a lot of these island countries. I don't know. I know some guy, he's Haitian, and I like to razz him a little bit. And I saw he posted something today where he was talking about, oh, God. What was it? He's not, well, yeah. But it was like throw off the chains of imperialism, like Puerto Rico and Haiti and Cuba all standing together. And I'm like, oh, great. The great shithole rebellion of 2021. That's not funny, but it is. It really is. Anyway, so Haiti's in some kind of upheaval as well, which seems to be, what else is new? But the idea of Joe Biden rejecting these migrants, right? So we talked about China and how that would look to China. But there's also another reason why they can't come out and say that the reason why these people are leaving is because of communism. And if you look at the mainstream media's coverage of it, now it's going to change now that people are being killed. They can't quite cover that up as easily. But when I was doing my initial digging on Monday, a lot of the articles that I was looking at had it phrased as if it was a political upheaval. See, they weren't necessarily attributing it to communism. Now, why is that? Well, because, as I alluded to earlier, the Democrat Party is trying to institute that here. Yes. In the form of socialism. Which, again, amounts to the same thing. See, they have a big shiny turd in their party named Bernie Sanders, who's openly communist. Now, they've since tried to clean it up. and put a little sugar coating on the turd. But if you bite into a chocolate covered, well, let's not use chocolate. If you bite into a turd covered with powdered sugar, how much sugar do you need before you taste the shit? Well, that's a trick question. There's no amount. Or the amount that you would need would probably kill you instantly. You'd be instantly diabetic. And that's the problem with Bernie Sanders as he poses to the Democrat Party now. Because again, this was a man who vacationed in the Soviet Union. Excuse me, not vacation. He honeymooned. He took his honeymoon from one of his previous failed marriages in the Soviet Union. Yes. There is video of this man singing communist hymns, shirtless. I don't understand that. Hell, even during the primary, this man was praising Cuba. Lest we forget, during the Democrat primaries, he was the first time that, let's just call it election integrity was used to help Joe Biden somehow close an insurmountable gap almost immediately. We probably should have been clued in then that they had some kind of, shall we say, fix in the election process, in the electoral process. Because remember, Bernie Sanders blew everybody out of the water, and then all of a sudden he lost. After Joe Biden went to South Carolina, gonna put y'all back in chains. So, Bernie Sanders was praising Cuba, was praising their literacy program. Remember this? And from him came a whole host of other proud communists. Well, let's talk about the people. I don't know. Black Lives Matter. Their leaders were trained Marxists. Marxism, communism, same thing. Marxism is the foundation of that. It's founded by Karl Marx. So the Democrats are all tied up in this shit. So they can't very well now come out and say, we're going to take in these refugees from this failed Cuban state, yet another failed Cuban state, by the way. It's not failed Cuban state, failed communist state, excuse me. But let's talk about some of the stuff they're doing here. And you brought him here. I do a better Bane when I'm not in front of a microphone, but I had to figure out how to adapt it. Anyway, this government, talking about the Cuban government, part of the gripes that the people were having was about their failed COVID response. Imagine that. Another one of the gripes that the people were having was about the failed economy. Imagine that. So let's talk about a failed COVID response. You mean like locking people down? Which, as we found out, as most of us found out earlier, who get our news from actual places that do the news and not just propaganda, lockdowns made it worse. And now, this here government, this here cabal that's running our government, whatever you want to call it, well, they've stepped up their fascistic tactics. They've stepped up their police state tactics because Democrats now, I don't know if you're aware of this, but they're actually fighting for the right to censor your private text messages if you talk about COVID, the vaccine, or Biden's response to it. Now, understand, it always starts with something small, right? Because they're going to say, we want to stop misinformation. And that's the frustrating thing about talking to stupid people. Because they'll be like, oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah, we should stop misinformation. No, idiot. First of all, who deems what to be misinformation? That's number one. Who's the person with their finger on the button? Who gets to decide what's a foul and what's just a hard, fair play? But number two, let's talk about the Patriot Act. Patriot Act was put in for 9/11. It's still on the fucking books. As a matter of fact, Biden's using it now against conservatives. The point being, when you give these people that kind of power, there's never a time where they turn around and say, okay, we're done with it now. We're going to take this law off the books. We're not going to use it anymore. No, they just turn it to, how can we use this to increase our power? And if you trust these motherfuckers after everything we've seen over the last year, hell, over the last, when was the election? November. It's July now, 9 months. Then you're a genre of stupid that is dangerous to the rest of us. And I would encourage you to take a long walk off of a short bridge. But for the rest of us, understand that censoring disinformation or misinformation in text messages, it doesn't stop there. It never stops there. The issue is now they're prying into your private communication. See, first it started with social media, which was mass communication. But now they're actually creeping into private communication. And the fact that, whether or not this even gets passed, the fact that these people have the balls to say, we want to do this. You know, I understand the French Revolution now. I understand why those people stormed the palace, took the king and the queen out, and cut their heads off. I understand why people would get mad enough to shoot and kill politicians. I understand it. 100% understand it. Because that old saying is true. Where government fears its people, there is liberty. Where people fear the government, there is tyranny. And that's more where we're headed now. People are more afraid of the government than the government is of the people. So you have, on the one hand, Democrats actually pushing to be able to censor your text messages. I have an article for that. It will be down in the description. But that's not enough. No, because I'm sure you've heard of this. Joe Biden has enlisted foot soldiers. Yes, they're going door to door now, spreading quote unquote information about COVID vaccinations. They're making a list and checking it twice. Now they are coming to your door to tell you you need to get vaccinated. Because if you think it just ends with a flyer, again, you are a dimension of stupid that I cannot label because my brain can't fathom it. If you think it ends with just some little old lady knocking on your door saying, did you get your vaccination? Wearing a mask outside, you know, even though the science, quote unquote, the science says that's completely, it does nothing. It just makes you look stupid and makes your face very humid. But the fact that these people will now come to your doors, and you had a lot of conservative media outlets and pundits or whatever put up these little signs that I guess they had some kind of legal consultation that says, you know, hey, I'm not interested in talking about this. If you knock on my door and talk to me about this topic, you are trespassing and subject to criminal, blah, 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 blah. Well, I just saw an update in one of the articles where he released a memo, he being Biden, released a memo this week that said, ignore that. So there you go. Just like with the rioters, law, we turn it off when we want to. And that's what's going on here in the quote unquote free nation of America. And speaking of the rioters, you know, I talked about Cuba and how the Cuban president said, get out there and discourage these protesters. Get out there and fight them. While the government turns a blind eye. Does that remind you of anybody? A group that was running around intimidating people in the North because they're not allowed to have guns. They're not allowed to defend themselves. And that's the other thing, right? Another segue. I'm sorry, whatever. You would think these people, I used to think so highly of a lot of people that now I just see as fucking stupid and disappointing. It's like, how far do you have to walk into the trap before you realize you're walking into a trap? Like, seriously, if somebody were to just tie you up, it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm just tied up. Nothing dangerous has happened yet. Okay, yeah, okay, fine. Then they just they bring out this little canister of gasoline. Oh, he's got gasoline. I wonder what he's doing with that. Oh, he's pouring it on the floor. Okay, well, that's gonna stain the carpet. That's all right, but it's not a pleasant smell, but I'm still alive. Okay. Oh, what's he got in his pocket there? Oh, a lighter. I wonder what he's gonna do with that. Like, at what point do you realize that this motherfucker's about to set you on fire? And I guess that's my way of saying, or alluding to, they take away your right to bear arms. Your right to defend yourself, huh? They tell you don't need it. Which, by the way, those are the people you should be worried about. The people who think it's their right or their position to tell you what you need and don't need. Unless you're a child and those people created you, that should raise a red flag. But anyway, they take away your right to bear arms. Say it's not necessary of the police. Then what happened? Oh, we defunded the police. Huh. And then what happened? Riots. Violence. Still nothing, huh? Still not seeing how you've been set up. Seeing how you've been disarmed. Seeing how you've been primed to be subjugated. And that's what I said, man. I said it once. I'll say it a million times. That's my hill. 2A is my hill. People say that's not my hill to die on. That's what the saying goes. That's my hill to die on. Yes, it is. So if this podcast goes away for more than, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then just disappears, and you hear about some kind of crazy shootout in a house in Florida involving a man with lots of guns and federal agents, well, that was my time. Because I'm telling you right now, I don't want to see what happens when they take away everybody's right to protect themselves. And because understand, when they take away your guns, what they're effectively taking away is your right to say no and mean it. See, anything else is backed by this line you will not cross. In other words, I can't go to the house of a guy and say, I want your car. Give me your car. And he say, no. Well, if that guy has a gun, when he says no, okay, ultimately I know what his no means. I will shoot you. But if he doesn't have a gun, that's somebody in a far weaker position, especially when you consider the fact that the government has guns. So now you have people who have guns going to people who don't have guns and saying, do this. To quote from the movie V for Vendetta, what usually happens when people with guns or when people without guns say no to people with guns? Bang, 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 bang. Mass grave. And our government has already shown that it's got something of a queer fixation with totalitarianism and some of the aspects of that government. Anyway, folks, that's what I got for you today. Again, I appreciate you guys sticking around, man. We are back. We are absolutely back. So I'll be back at you again tomorrow. So until the next time, peace.